Excellent.
All right.
Well, thank you for taking this time. We really appreciate it. It's really an honor to be able to talk with you.
Oh, thank you.
And we're talking with Baljit,
Yeah.
who made Because We Are Girls.
Documentary. Do you actually? Why don't we start by you talking about the documentary, the story that's in it, and you know what's going on with this movie.
Well, for me, I really think the story's about love, like. But for those who want to check it out, it's about three sisters who were sexually abused by their cousin growing up, and they had to keep it a secret for a couple decades. They didn't even tell each other, and for various reasons, they come out about sexual abuse, and they go to the court system and their parents, and it has a huge impact. And I follow that, but I also follow like how it impacts them, their relationships, their family, just sort of like the multi-layers of this, you know, sort of the impact of secrets and lies. And sometimes you think, you know, you've repressed it or it's so far gone, but once you just sort of, you know, chip away at that, there's a lot of emotion that comes out, and yeah. And I mean, it's also a story of sisterhood and resilience. In that it's very powerful. Like, they were able to do this and stand up for the wrongs of their childhood. So I think that's really important. And it's a positive. I know it sounds heavy, but it's very positive.
I think it's one of the last shots when Kira, it's one of the last family shots when Kira's on the couch talking about the eye contact thing and how that leads to everything. I think that one moment encapsulates everything you just said.
It is very interesting. You started your description with it's a story about love, and I think that it is very important to recognize in this film that it's a disheartening film. Like, the story is so tough and serious, and really unfortunate that these sisters had to go through this. But I think you do such a wonderful job, and great praise for what you did with the film in demonstrating the love and the relationship between these sisters as they get through this ordeal. So just high praises from me on the film. I thought that it was so well done, and it did this wonderful job of capturing the pain of this situation, but also the beauty in these relationships that these sisters had.
Agreed, but twice, because I watched it twice.
You did watch it twice.
And the cinematography it pops more on the big screen. In your credits, it does say that there's a DP, but then at the Q&A, I just heard that you were the one doing the shots.
So a little bit I shot just because I had to, because you can't just stop, like, oh, funding didn't come through, or production's not going to start. This is a court case, you know, lives keep going, and so I kind of followed them, and I went with them with a small DSLR camera, and there's a few little bits that I filmed that's in there, but yeah, there's a DP.
Okay, so like the scene we just referenced, the family scene where they're having tea, and that's kind of the climax of the film. Yes. Is that you, or is
no?
that...
God, no.
Oh my God,
that's the DP. He was amazing. It was just
so
one camera.
Why were they so familiar with him?
Oh,
or,
no, they
nice
like he filmed a lot of it.
Okay.
There's just like just a little, like when she was in the witness room and she was just really emotional, you know, she comes in and takes a deep breath and she's saying, this is so hard, I have my own truth.
Doing this with her.
Yeah, that's
just
me.
Trying to cool off.
Yeah, that was me. And then when she was in the hotel room crying and her husband was on loudspeaker and her sister hugs her, that was me. But everything else, yeah, it's grand.
So I know that you, in the Q&A, we should say for this audience as well, you are friends with the family at some level. Could you walk us through how you guys know each other and how that emotional tapestry
me and GT are friends. We met way back. I used to produce and direct a show for a television show, an arts and entertainment show, kind of like fusion entertainment, and she was designing clothes at the time, and she was in Vancouver Fashion Week, and I did a story on her, and we just clicked. And we stayed in touch, and it's kind of like I'm doing something a little bit outside of the box in terms of, you know, carving a career in the arts, and so is she. So it's like a natural friendship, and we just stayed in touch. And I think even then, when I met her, we would just, whenever she was in Vancouver, we'd, you know, grab a coffee and catch up and support each other, you know, how to take it to the next level.
And you guys were friends in Vancouver, so it's kind of like big city people that get me
Yeah.
And then there's just that dynamism of being close.
Yeah. And but she did say, like, you know, one day me and you're gonna do something and it's gonna be big. I'm like, really? Okay, let's do it. Like, that was, you know, she said that when we met in around 2003, so it's been a while. Yeah.
Cool. Was that when you were working for Omni? Am I correct there?
It was for City TV.
City TV.
Show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did my research. I know that you started with Hockey Unites.
Oh no, that's just
on IMDb.
Is it on? No, that's more recent. Yeah, I started. It was a TV show called Viva. It was on City TV for
we
a few
gotta get
seasons.
that on your IMDb page.
I gotta. There's so much to do. I don't know why that's. I gotta
We've got
redo that.
Hockey
Thank you.
Unites into Warrior Boys, and then Many Rivers Home.
Wrong order, but yeah, I've done.
Wrong
I did all those.
That's the order I did.
You know what? I'm very excited for this film. I heard that there were the screenings that you guys did in Vancouver. Most of them sold out. Is that true?
It's true.
It really. There's so much demand for this movie. I want to know, first of all, how you feel about that, but also if you could tell us more about the response that audiences have had to this film after seeing it.
Well, the audience response has been amazing. We've gotten like standing ovations, a lot of tears, lots of hugs. There's so much love in the room after. Like when people come after, like you're already starting. You feel like you already know that person. Like we start with a hug, and they're like, "Hey, I this is what I like," because it's emotions are there, and everybody's feeling emotion. It's cathartic, and we want to hug and talk, and you know, and people have reached out to us on social media, and then people are, you know, standing behind it. Maybe they too had a similar experience, but were able to break their silence, and they're like, you know, I want to really champion your film. And that's how, like, we've had these spontaneous community screenings even happen that have been sold out, like 400 seats.
Is that the one that happened in Surrey?
Yeah. And then after that screening, a woman came up to me and they're like, you need to take this to Abbotsford, which is another suburb, a little further east from Surrey. And I'm like, sure, make it happen. And then within a week, she's like, yeah, got the auditorium booked, it's happening. Here's the the graphics. The tickets are almost sold out. So
that's
it's
amazing.
like, wow. So
Well,
that's what you want. You do a film that has impact. Then you want the community to kind of have community engagement and, talk about these issues. And yeah,
it's a
that's
film
what
that
you
kind of
want.
gives back, right?
That's kind of been happening, and that's sort of the magic. So we're really happy about that. But we did well in Canada. We're from Canada. We're just, really want to get it far and wide, get into the States.
Well, it's in the
Europe.
States.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Is there any plans to get it into Europe?
Hope so, knock on wood. But film is very competitive, so let's see. I hope so. And word of mouth and momentum, and platforms like yours to amplify the film. Then people will reach out and go, hey, I heard about this title, or can I see a screener, or hey, we have something going on. So that's kind of really magical too.
It is. Speaking of using a platform, I do want to make sure while we're recording that we ask you about the petition and you kind of explain it. I will tell them that if they search for Because We Are Girls change.org, then it will pop up. But could you tell us more about the petition?
Okay, so I guess what? It's not giving away the movie, but anyways, at the end of the movie, basically the accused applied for what's known as a Jordan application in Canada, which says his charter rights were breached because the trial process took so long. It took 3 years to get through, and there was tons of delays, and they were all initiated by the accused, their cousin. Anyways, at the end of the case, there was guilty 4 out of 6 charges of sexual violence, and then they applied for that, and he won that. And basically that means the charges are stayed, dropped. He has no record. He's not going to have be registered in the sex offenders registry. So there was 30 days after that came down, like that, he got a stay of proceedings for the Crown to appeal it. And 30 days came, and but when the 30 days were announced, we were like, let's make noise. Let's rally, let's make noise, get people to sign this petition saying, the Crown should appeal this. And that was registered on change.org /Puni Sisters. And within 2 weeks, we had 30,000 signatures. So that's just
it's over 30,000 when I just signed it today. So.
Okay, well there, wow. So that's momentum, and that's what the film did. So, and that's social media, platforms like this, and people talking, and it's been good. But so where is that now? After the 30 days came and went, the Crown asked for an extension to see if they're going to appeal it. So it's still, it's kind of like pause.
Mm-hmm.
So if they decide they're going to appeal it, great. If they don't, it's over. So we're hoping,
so
with this extension,
we can get.
we still need that momentum. The Crown has to appeal it, but of course they have to find a fault that the judge did within law, right, to appeal it. But I mean, I was shocked because he made all the delays. He's like, I'm sick, I'm in the hospital, I'm getting a new lawyer, I can't afford my lawyer, my new lawyer, all of these, and they're ready to. So he was good all the way up until the sisters had to testify. And then that's when all the excuses came. And a whole year went by where adjournment after adjournment after adjournment.
And you were there every step of the way.
Yeah. It took, and I'm like, well, it's expensive to go to Williams Lake. Like, let me know, is this happening? They're like, no, it's adjourned. Okay, if it's happening, I'll be there. And then when they did get their chance to tell their story and testify, I was there.
Yeah.
Thank
you. I wanted to make sure we've had that.
I know, so hard. Yeah, it's very hard. First of all, just to even get to Supreme Court with a historical sexual abuse case. Only like 1 or 2% of cases of historical sexual abuse make it that far.
Because
it's your word against their word. There really isn't a lot of evidence, So they have to kind of create a timeline and have all the story. It's tough. But the fact that it was 3 sisters and a cousin against him, that's a pretty strong case.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the Crown took it. So I was really surprised with the outcome.
We were talking about how tough this subject is, and I think, as the Me Too movement moves forward, and then as you were talking about momentum with this particular issue that we're grappling with as a society, I guess I want to get your perspective on what this is like, particularly for the Punjabi community, because we're familiar with it in like general society, and how we're all trying to get society to move towards making sure that this isn't systematic anymore, and this isn't something that is allowed to be perpetuated. But there seems to be tradition within the Punjabi community of submission, of respect, and that can kind of cause problems, as the movie illustrates. That can kind of cause problems when these things do come up. Girls are taught to be submissive and to keep their mouths shut, and they're going to get in trouble if they step out of line, and reporting something like that might be stepping out of line. So how do you reconcile, or I guess what is your perspective on how we can help reconcile that challenge in culture, and also move towards fair, good treatment of women?
Wow. Well, the fact that we're talking about this issue is huge. We're having this conversation, right? Like,
the stories are being told.
The stories are being told. Like say even with Me Too, Time's Up, things. People are sharing their stories to come forward to kind of help other women, really, right? And just as a culture, we were talking about this, right? It was being reported in the news, and often by a lot of women, who are well known or celebrities or so forth initially, right?
Yes.
So, but the fact that it was talked about, I think that's really impacted the South Asian community too, because you're seeing it in mainstream media. So and that's impacting like the social values and cultural values, and conversations are around that. So I think that's huge. I think the more we talk about it, the more we take away the taboo and stigma around it. And I'm seeing that at screenings. There was, like I said, there was a panel, and an elderly lady shared her story. The moderator was a male, and he shared his story. So that's really powerful. This is like new, especially in our community, to talk about it. But I think it's really important. Again, the more we talk about it, the easier it is to talk about it. We've got to take the shame and blame away from it, and we got to realize that this secret it's not the kids' secret. They didn't do anything wrong, or survivors of sexual abuse. It wasn't their secret to keep. So all it does is give the perpetrator power. They can count on that silence So you got to have those kind of conversations. You got to break that silence, and we have to have those kind of conversations like with our kids. Change some of the challenge patriarchal values and systems that perpetuate this. Where there's such a gender inequality. Where boys are here and girls are here. If girls kind of grow up with that, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's got to change. And in our culture, that is being challenged for sure. But there's a lot of tradition that really celebrates boys over girls.
Yeah.
In the movie you saw the brother saying, I get this bracelets and my sisters tie it. It's called Raksha Bandhan, and it's a big deal.
And you had a great edited shot of when the conversation begins at the climax. There's a shot of him with his wife above the fireplace.
Did you see how big that is?
I did see how big that was.
Right?
There's a great visual subtext to what you're saying in your film.
Yeah, and sometimes people are just not even consciously aware that they make, such a distinction. But girls will pick up on it, or, if in some families, if they're, grandchildren or there's boys and girls, maybe there's more attention to the grandsons and, or in our culture, we have this thing called Lori, which is a big celebration of when, they have it in January, they light a bonfire and people have, I don't know all about it, but anyways, it's really around when a son is born.
Okay.
So that's changing now, and a lot of girls are we need to rewrite this, and they do rakri and they're doing it with daughters or sisters with sisters. You can change it. You could, you don't have to keep perpetuating things that really celebrate that. A family shouldn't feel bad. I don't have a son. There's that scene in the movie where the mom's like, yeah, I did all the service at the temple, and all the ladies said, see, all that service paid off. Now you're rewarded with a son.
Mm-hmm.
And then one sister says, happiness came to our house when my brother was born. So
I think even the opening monologue, it said, I'm the third I'm
the second child in the quest for
a
son.
son. A lot of Indian families, if there's a lot of kids, you gotta guess it, and you're like, I wonder if the son's probably the last child. I'm gonna have 5 kids, and you're like, 4 girls and 1 boy, and let me guess what order the boy is. Yeah, but that's changing. It is, the younger generation. My brothers have children, and I have a lot of nieces, and they're raised very much so equal with boys. We're changing that, and with education, and girls are doing really well, but you got to challenge that. If not, we're the fact that we're having these conversations and the community's organizing around it. I'm seeing change. I'm really positive.
It's great that it's happening here. I guess one thing that I worry about is it still happening in the Punjabi community in India? Is that something that is happening?
Well, it's such a big topic, and obviously there's always exceptions, and that could be relative to education, where you live, and access, and a lot of things like that. But to be shameful, but I have to share that in India, in Punjab, there's such a disproportionate ratio between boys and girls, like population wise numbers, because women are choosing selective abortion, knowing it's a daughter.
Yes, we saw this in China.
You've seen that in India. You can Google it. You can look at the numbers. It's very in India. I know definitely in Punjab, all across India. Yeah, there's some villages where it's 6 months, 7 months, no daughter was born. That's impossible.
So
or a year or no daughter. What is that about?
I think it'd be cool if this could make it back to the community it sprang from. Personally, I don't know if that's gonna, make enough waves to get there, but I'd like to think that you're gonna go have a screening in India.
I do too.
Exactly, it starts somewhere, right? And that's why you said this is something big. This is an important step to take in getting these stories out and telling these stories and having people hear and see the change that's happening, and that's the community is moving towards. So.
You gotta just change hearts and minds in somebody in that chain, to break that cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may have come from that, but you have a family. I'm not going to perpetuate that, right?
Yes.
You saw in the movie how Jeeti is with her daughters and her husband is with their daughters, right? Yeah.
That's
So
very
there's
special.
always hope, you know, and yeah, and there is a movement. Like there's a feminist movement, you know, trying to make change and always chipping it away, you know, trying to get that equality. And you know, hopefully our film, you know, can help out with that struggle, right?
Yeah.
That challenge. But yeah, I'm hopeful, and the film in the end is hopeful.
Yes, it is.
That's why I say it's about love and it's hopeful.
And about signing that petition.
Signing the petition, yes.
I did have a question about, in the film it's not specified, I believe her name was Chandari.
The daughter? Salakshana's daughter, Jamini?
Yes. Which aunt raised her? That wasn't quite specified.
Well, I think it's kind of she
said that, so I don't know.
Yeah. So basically, the three sisters are close, right? And they have there's three daughters, right? Jiti has two girls and Salakshana has one girl, and you have three sisters, and then there's three younger ones. They're really tight, you know. So exceptionally close, you know. So I think Janani was saying, like, when say she's having some issues, she feels more comfortable talking to her aunt over her mother.
Okay.
You know, has that connection. Like, of course, like, yeah. I think she meant it like that. Like,
okay.
She meant it like that. It's not like their sister physically like raised her, but they kind of all were so tight. They lived together, so it was very kind of communal that way. So that's really not unusual in Indian culture, like an extended family where that relation is almost like a mother relationship. Yeah.
Awesome. I guess what I want to know is what are future screenings looking like and distribution and things like that.
Well, I don't know. Like, what's happening right now? We're just having more screenings in Canada, in smaller cities too. Like, we're having one in Waterloo in November. We have another one in Vancouver, Abbotsford. Toronto is playing twice in October.
That's
wonderful.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's been amazing. So between like right now, October, November, it's gonna be busy. But we just hoping it gets on, I know bigger platforms, like to get it out there, just to get people. It's a challenge in all filmmakers, right? But luckily, the producers are the National Film Board, so they're really big in the educational market, and I'm sure they'll find the right platforms and to get it out there. But word of mouth and letting people know, and people requesting the film or saying, hey, I got a festival, can you send a screener? We're thinking, this might be a good fit. All of those things all happen from people and people talking and. Media, like, that shines a light on it. All this is super important, right? Because you're a stock, a little documentary in this like sea of product and films and huge multi-million-dollar projects. So without that kind of help to shine a light, and people really championing it, that's all the difference.
I do have a question about the documentary itself. There's a cousin who maybe we did see in the beginning. I wasn't sure. Is there a reason why I believe her name is Raj was not in the film?
Yeah. Well, she was part of the case, but she didn't live in in Surrey.
Okay.
She lived I think she's in Kamloops. So I didn't know her. I didn't have that relation.
Okay.
I wasn't there when she did her testimony. It was always the family story.
Okay. I just think that everybody that watches is going to kind of wonder, like, what about the fourth victim?
She's in the very end when they celebrate,
Okay, so
she's the one who's playing the drum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They actually, and that's not staged. That ending, that joyous end. They did it right at the court steps, and like the security's like, "Hey, what's going on?" So we had to move down, but she packed their cousin packed the Indian drum. That you put around your neck, and it's called a dole, and she brought it in case if they were victorious, that we're going to celebrate.
And that was the day that they won.
Yeah.
That the dance happened.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another thing that we don't quite figure out in the documentary, why they're dancing. So.
Yeah. Because I guess their clothes, the fact that their daughters were there, and the brother was there in a suit, and the husband, and they're just celebrating, and Kira's like, thumbs up to the camera, and they're hugging and playing a dole, but that's seemed like fitting into their personalities, and like the joy they kind of said in childhood is like dancing, and that was how we survived, as sisters,
And the other dances you have in the film itself as well kind of build to that, where the sisters are dancing.
Yeah. So I remember when Kira said that line, like everything else was so hard, but we did have joy, when we were together as sisters, and we would play together, and we would dance together, we would reenact movies. So that really stuck in my head when she had said that, and I just knew, and I kind of wove that through, and that's how we sort of,
Well, I have one more question before we wrap up. How are the sisters doing? How are they doing now?
I think they're doing well. I know it's, sharing a film in a collective space, like a theater together, is so powerful, because everybody, has energy, and you could feel it in the room, after, right? And people's faces. And I think they're feeling that energy and the support and the love from audiences. So if before they were, if any of them were before were kind of like, oh, I don't know, and now they're just standing taller. So I think that's really great. And the fact, they spearheaded this petition, it's been good, but I know sometimes, it's hard. I can't imagine, you're seeing yourself on screen going through really, really hard times, what exactly that feels like, and how you process that, so I see they're always conscious of the bigger picture, but I don't, they're all very three unique people, so I can't really say for, when we do go to screenings and we're there together, we get, that connection with the audience, and I look at all their faces. I see that connection, and Selection, she's not here, but I see that, but it's not easy, because on this flip side, depending on how you're feeling, or when you revisit that, it does open up your past, and we're all works in progress, right, as people, and even you got to constantly keep working on that, right,
some of that footage is wound reopening,
exactly. And the fact that it's something that they've shared together that's going to be around for a long time in this film. I think that, and it's the three of them. I think it's really special. And one of the sisters, she's not here, but when I told her we're doing a documentary, and I want you to be in it. No, I said we're doing a documentary, and she's like, "Oh, who are the actors?" I go, "No, there's going to be no actors. It's going to be you." She goes, "Me? Who wants to see me and my story?" And I'm like, "No, trust me, people are gonna want to know." And she's like, "Really?" And she's like, maybe 5 people might come and see this. And then we've had this really, pretty amazing response. So she's like, "Wow, yeah." So that's been kind of cool. But I've shown it in our community too, and some people have come up to me like, "Baljit, that's a really good movie. Where'd you get the actors?" I'm like, "They're not actors."
They are naturally a little bit performative, they jump out of the screen at you more than some other.
Where did you get the parents in that scene? Where those actors come from? I'm like, it's not actors. It's real people. It's real life.
Well, have they considered acting?
Yes. I don't know, but I was like, a few people did ask me that. I'm like, no, it's a documentary. It's real life, real stories.
But have they considered acting?
Possibly, yeah. And it was really nice to involve daughters in the film as well. Yeah, just sort of that generational aspect.
And the way it opens up.
Yeah.
Right, because you start with
the daughter.
Yeah, and then she's on her bicycle, I think, when we get our credits going, and that's just a great way to start the journey down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess last one for me, do you have another project on the way? When can we expect another project from you? I know you're touring this and you're doing all this, but I want to know the next time you're going to be embedded for 4-8 years trying to work on a project.
Oh, I know, hey? Wow, you got to really love a project for a documentary or any film, because you're really tied to it emotionally for a long time. But I've been working on a script want to do a feature narrative inspired by this film. Yeah.
Cool.
Not like exactly on this film, but that era, these stories.
Okay.
There's a wealth of
Can
stories.
you get the 3 girls?
I was gonna say casting director recommendation. Have you considered the sisters?
Yeah, I know. It's just, but once the film, and we've been getting like, good response, and people are like starting sharing their own stories, not about sexual abuse, but growing up, and like, oh, that was, I grew up in a small town, or this was the story, or this how this, the immigrant story, or going to school, or, in the earlier days, right? As the community grows, like all these, like, there's just a wealth of stories.
And the way you open it up, I found like I could relate to it, because you open up with that drone shot of Snowy Williams Lake, and I was like, oh, that looks like Stanwood where I grew up, but with snow. Like it looks that's a great way of putting everybody in their shoes.
Oh yeah,
so that was a great choice. I have to say.
Well, it's in the small towns, it's like there's a Sikh community in almost all these small towns in BC. Wherever there's like a sawmill, there's a Gurdwara and a Punjabi community. Yeah, so it's just been cool. Like now, for me, I like asking people kind of their own personal narratives and stories and sharing, and it's just like, wow, more needs to be done here. Like we have such a history in Canada, in terms of migration coming, in the early 1900s, and that's just not really in films or part of the bigger narrative. So we need to change that.
Yeah,
and tell our own stories, and I think representation is important too, right? Because you're going to shine a light on those stories that need to be told.
And then people are going to see themselves reflected in film and be like, oh, that's not my story, but that's like me in a story. What about my story? I could tell that too.
Yeah, and I think too, like people of color, we got to really celebrate our own stories and tell our own stories. We're part of this history. We're part of this narrative. We're part of a lot of the struggles and challenges, and labor movement, or so many things, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to celebrate that. We need to tell that story.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you, Baljit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We
Thank
really appreciate it.
you.